On my wedding day, just as I was about to say, my vows, my maid of honor stood up and announced she had proof that my husband-to-be wasn't who he claimed. She didn't just stop the wedding, she saved my life. The sunlight was streaming through the stained glass windows of the chapel, casting vibrant patterns of red and blue across my white silk dress. The air smelled like expensive peonies and candle wax. I looked into Caleb's eyes. He looked perfect. The kind of man every woman dreams of, strong, successful, and looking at me like I was the only person in the universe. The priest cleared his throat. "And now," he said, his voice echoing in the hollowed space, "the couple will share their vows." I took a deep breath. My hands were trembling slightly as I held my handwritten notes. "Caleb," I began, my voice soft but steady, "from the moment I met you at that gallery, I knew my life would never be the same." I looked at the front row. My parents were beaming. My friends were dabbing at their eyes. And then there was Sarah, my maid of honor, my best friend since we were 5 years old. She was standing just a few feet away from me, and she looked like she was about to faint. Her face was as white as my dress. Her eyes were fixed on the back of the church. "Sarah," I whispered, pausing mid-sentence. The room went silent. Caleb's grip on my hands tightened, just a little too much. "Keep going, babe," he whispered. "Ignore her. She's just emotional." But Sarah wasn't just emotional, she was terrified. She took a step forward, dropping her bouquet of roses on the stone floor. "Stop," she said. The word was small, but in that silent chapel it sounded like a gunshot. "Sarah, what are you doing?" Caleb's father hissed from the front row. Sarah didn't look at him. She looked straight at me. "Maya, you can't say those vows," she said. Her voice was shaking, but it was gaining strength. "I stood up here because I love you, and because I thought I could keep this secret until after the party, but I can't." She reached into the folds of her peach-colored bridesmaid dress. She pulled out a small silver thumb drive. "I'm not here to announce a pregnancy," she said, her voice echoing now. "And I'm not here to say I'm in love with him." She looked at Caleb. The look she gave him was filled with pure, unadulterated disgust. "I'm here to announce that Caleb isn't a venture capitalist," she said. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "Sarah, stop this," Caleb growled. He didn't sound like the man I loved anymore. His voice was low, guttural, threatening. "He's not a businessman, Maya," Sarah continued, ignoring him. "He's a professional beneficiary." And I found the list of the other women. I thought that was the worst part, but I was wrong. Because what happened next changed the very definition of my life. Caleb tried to grab the thumb drive from her hand, but my brother, who was a groomsman, stepped between them. "Let her speak," my brother said. The chapel was in an uproar. People were standing up. My mother was clutching her pearls so hard they snapped, scattering across the floor. Sarah walked over to the AV technician at the side of the altar. "The man who was supposed to play our first dance video." She handed him the drive. "Play the folder labeled The Portfolio," she instructed. The screen behind the priest flickered to life. I expected to see photos of Caleb with other women. I expected a cheating scandal. But what I saw was a series of death certificates. 5 of them. All women. All under the age of 30. And all of them had been married to a man who looked exactly like Caleb, but with different names. "He marries them for the life insurance, Maya," Sarah's voice rang out over the gasps of the crowd. "He targets women with no siblings and wealthy parents. He's been doing this for 10 years. I looked at Caleb. The mask had completely fallen off. He wasn't crying. He wasn't begging. He was looking at the exit. "You're insane," he sneered, looking at the crowd. "These are fakes. Sarah's always been jealous of us, Maya. She's trying to destroy your happiness." But then the video changed. It wasn't a document anymore. It was a recording from a nanny cam. It was from last night, the night of our rehearsal dinner. The camera was positioned in the hallway of the hotel. I saw Caleb, and I saw Sarah. He had her pinned against the wall. "If you say a word tomorrow," Caleb's voice came through the speakers, crystal clear, "I'll make sure your parents' house burns down with them inside." "You think I'm playing?" asked the last girl's best friend. "Oh wait, you can't. She's at the bottom of a lake." The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of 100 people realizing they were in the presence of a predator. Caleb didn't wait for the police. He bolted toward the side door. But my father, a retired police captain, wasn't about to let him go. He and my brothers tackled him before he reached the heavy oak doors. I stood at the altar. The priest was crossing himself. I looked down at my vows, the paper I'd spent weeks writing. I tore them into pieces, but that wasn't the real secret. The real secret was why Sarah had waited until the ceremony. I walked over to her as the police arrived to haul Caleb away. "Why now?" I whispered, my heart feeling like it had been shredded. "Why didn't you tell me last night?" Sarah took my hands. She was crying now. "Because he was watching you, Maya. Every second. He bugged your room. He was tracking your phone. If I had told you in private, he would have killed us both before sunrise." She looked at the obtech. The only place he couldn't stop me was in front of 100 witnesses and a live stream camera. I realized then that Sarah hadn't just ruined my wedding. She had staged a public execution of his lies. She had used the very thing he wanted, a grand public event, as his cage. I thought that was the end, but it wasn't. A week later, I was sitting in my living room. The house was quiet. The wedding gifts were being returned. The insurance company called me. "In advance?" the agent asked. "We're calling about the policy Mr. Caleb took out on you." "I know," I said. "He wanted the $2 million." "No," the agent said. His voice sounded shaken. "He didn't take out a policy for $2 million. He took out a policy for $10 million, and he had it set to pay out to a third party, a woman named Vanessa." Vanessa? I'd heard that name once. Caleb's sister who lived in Europe. I did some digging. Vanessa wasn't his sister. She was his wife, his real wife. They had been a team for a decade. He was the face. She was the architect. And that's when everything changed. I didn't hide. I didn't crumble. I worked with the FI to track the money. It turned out that Vanessa was currently living in a penthouse in New York, waiting for the news of my accidental death on my honeymoon. Instead, she got a knock on the door from a SWAT team. What happened next shocked everyone who knew us. The story went national. The altar assassin, they called him. Caleb and Vanessa are now serving life sentences without the possibility of parole. And me? I didn't get married that day, but I did get something much better. I got my life back. And I realized that a white dress doesn't make you a bride, but a true friend makes you a survivor. Sarah and I took the money I'd saved for the honeymoon, and we went on a trip around the world, not to find romance, but to find the versions of ourselves that we almost lost. And that's when I finally found peace. I still have that torn up vow at the bottom of a drawer. Sometimes I look at it, not with sadness, but with the knowledge that the best thing I ever said at that altar was nothing at all. Powerful final ending line. He thought he was leading me to the slaughter, but he forgot that a woman who is loved by her friends is the most protected person on earth. True loyalty is being willing to burn the world down to save the person you love. Have you ever had a friend who saw a red flag you were too blind to notice? Share your story in the comments, and if you believe that the truth is worth more than any diamond, hit that subscribe button for more.